Hey there, welcome to this video. My name is Max and today I will show you how to create a heavy aggressive dubstep bass sound using a Thor and a couple of effects devices. First, I'll show you a quick example of the patch. This is a song I've been working on and the bass can be heard just after the drop. Let's start from scratch and build the patch. We'll start off with a Thor synthesizer, and the first thing we'll do is activate all oscillators. Let's set the first one up as a sawtooth wave, with an octave setting of 1. The second oscillator will have the same settings, but will be 1 octave higher and also slightly detuned. The third oscillator will be a square wave at octave 1, with a PWM knob set to the middle so that we get a full rich square sound. All three of these oscillators go into a low-pass filter with a resonance of about halfway. I'll bring in some note material at this point. As you could hear in the example I played earlier, the bass has a roaring character. It almost sounds like it is actually shouting the word wow at us. This is because the resonance in the filter causes a spike in the frequency the filter sits at, or in other terms, we're using the filter as a makeshift wah-wah pedal. Now would be a good time to automate the filter cutoff frequency. In order to do that, we can alt-click the frequency knob to create an automation lane in which we'll draw a group using the pen tool. Now you might be asking yourself, why don't we just use an LFO? The answer is simple: more control. We can place the automation anchor points exactly where we want them to be. Instead of using a smooth sine curve, for example, we can draw in much harder automation phrases with a lot more contrast, which is what we'll do right now. Let's start about halfway, at around 1000 Hz, and then add quick rhythmic gaps in the lane by placing more vector points. Finally, after taking care of the filter automation in the sequencer, we'll head back to the rack and turn the sustain all the way up so that the note doesn't decay in volume when it's played. Now let's start working with effects. The first thing this bass could use is some unison in order to fatten it up. About halfway wet is a good value. Distortion is up next, and the Scream 4 is our go-to device for that, so let's add one. We'll set the algorithm to fuzz and turn both the tone and present knobs all the way up. This results in the most present, intense distortion possible, but don't worry, we'll turn the damage control up to only 2/3. To shape the sound further, we'll activate the body section and turn it to type B. It's supposed to only have a slight effect though, so let's turn the resonance all the way down and set the scale about halfway. Only two things left to do now: reverb and EQ. So let's continue by creating an RV7000 and setting up a basic room reverb. The reverb makes the sound seem bigger. Usually, adding reverb to a bass is something quite controversial, because the low-end frequencies can make the signal sound muddy. But don't worry, we'll take care of that using EQ. Let's go with an M-class one. Scooping out a wide range of frequencies at the 250 Hz mark is a good idea for two reasons. One, it makes the sound less muddy, and two, in the heavier kinds of dubstep, the snare often hits quite heavily in that area, so we're creating some room for that. Another thing we'll do is boost the high end a bit using the high shelf section in the EQ. This will make our bass sound more crisp and present. Lastly, we'll use the low shelf section to take out the really low frequencies so that our sound does not interfere with the sub bass that we might add later on. And with that, the patch is finished. We can now select all of these devices and put them in a combinator. And I have one last recommendation. In order to bring out its full potential, you can layer it with a sub bass. A Thor or a subtractor playing a single low sine wave will do quite nicely. As you can hear, in combination with a few other elements such as heavy drums and a deep sub bass, this patch works quite nicely in a modern dubstep production. I hope you found this tutorial useful, and I'm looking forward to hearing what you guys will come up with.